Pablo Sucupira. Before I start, I would like to credit Full Violence and the UFC Connected series for this information. Pablo is the co-founder and also coach of the Fighting Nerds. You could call him the marketing mastermind behind the huge surge of popularity this gym has the past year. Having been an actual marketer himself, he felt like his work wasn't getting enough credit, so he quit at the age of 29. Personal note, yes, marketing does sound like you get to do some crazy creative work, but sadly, it's creative work under the corporate LinkedIn world. But anyway, Pablo took up boxing and Muay Thai at the age of 29. Your first thought is, wow, that's a stupid idea. But trust me, later down his life, it plays a crucial role. After a while, he can feel his athletic ability begin to deteriorate, so he focused on his passion of coaching and studying fights. So thus, he opened Combat Club Sao Paulo. In 2014, a young Caio Borralho walked into the Combat Club wanting to refine his striking skills. He was a nerd. Sorry, sounds abrupt as hell, but it's true. He was a former maths and chemistry teacher and had a background in the nerdiest martial art, Jiu-Jitsu. Once he met his new striking teacher, it was this short dude with white hair. So like any other fighter, his way of sizing him up is to beat him senseless.
I never got beat up in any fight that I had the same way that he beat me that time. He beat the out of me.
Underestimating him was an understatement. Caio found his new coach. And not only that, a new dynamic was founded in their relationship, which reflected to the whole gym's philosophy. Yes, they found out they were just a bunch of nerds. With Pablo's marketing and striking skills, plus a huge passion on just studying fights, and with Caio's young athletic body and his background in grappling, it was only up from there. The Fighting Nerds began that day. So that is essentially the documentary part of the video. The rest is going to be, in fighting nerd fashion, analyzing all of their fights. I'm going to put on my fighting nerd glasses and break down Caio Borralho, Jean Silva, Carlos Prates, Bruna Brasil, and Mauricio Ruffy as much as humanly possible. And also as palatable as a YouTube video can get as well, okay? I'm not going to talk about ground control for 5 minutes. Caio Borralho. Let's start off with the leader of the group. It's not officially disclosed, but he's basically the leader. I think he has the best English skills. He's the co-founder and also the first to enter the UFC. He is also the nerdiest. He grew up watching Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee as a kid and had to wear glasses at the age of 3. Meaning since he was a literal child, his life path was to be a fighting nerd leader. And maybe middleweight champion perhaps in the future? Even stated specifically in Wikipedia. He is a fan of superhero films, video games, and anime. He also plays chess, which is why Borralho got the name Rei dos Nerds, King of Nerds. Borralho comes in with a very solid record of 17-1, where he has the most packaged MMA style. He has excellent striking, well, it used to be garbage, but now excellent striking, excellent grappling, and excellent fight IQ. Which is why he is the one with the most decision fights as well. He kinda dissects his opponent down until he gets the win. Just like a nerd playing chess. Also why all of his decisions were all unanimous decision wins. Now that I think about it, I kinda want to see him fight DDP. Who knows when that will be or if it's for the title or not. I would love to see plot armor versus textbook IQ. Which is more bullshit. So let's start at the very, very beginning of his fighting career.
That much anime, but I watch Naruto a lot. That's my favorite anime.
Okay, so GSP was a huge inspiration for you. You said that you were most influenced by him as a fighter, and then Conor, you said that you switched your stance because of Conor.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, like as a judo practice, I am right-handed, you know?
Yeah.
But in judo, the base for right-handed is like that. So you put your hand there, so it's left-handed in boxing.
Okay.
You know? But I started Muay Thai as a right-hander in Muay Thai.
Okay.
And then I saw Conor doing his things, and I was like, this stance is better to control the distance. This stance is better because people are not used to that. So I need to learn that. I need to learn. And so I got like all of his tapes, even like his training tapes and everything that about Conor I was studying, you know.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I was fighting on a orthodox stance, southpaw stance,
Southpaw,
sorry.
yeah.
And then I was fighting a southpaw stance just because of him. He teaches me a lot and he doesn't even know.
That's
If your inspiration was GSP and Prime Conor, I think you're going in the right path of fight IQ. Sadly, I could not find any footage of these first 6 fights, but I'll still read them out. He won his first fight on December 13th, 2024 in the first round, and he was a welterweight throughout this whole time. Then he lost by unanimous decision, aka his only loss so far. Then he won by rear naked choke in round 3. Then he won by TKO in 20 seconds. And then there was a no contest, which had no context, unfortunately. But maybe if you research deeper or if you know Portuguese, unlike me, then you might actually find fight footage. But unfortunately, this is the best you're going to get for an English speaker. Then he wins by TKO in round 1 in the first minute as well. And this was his middleweight debut. And then he won in 2019 in the first 2 minutes via Anaconda choke. This is the most diverse form of winning, aka the smartest way of winning for an MMA fighter nowadays.
87 quilos.
Lutador com 5 vitórias, uma derrota, 26 anos.
O Caio tem detalhes em vermelho, categoria de pesos combinados, 2 são da categoria dos médios de pesos combinados.
And holy moly, even a toddler can tell you that this man's inspiration was definitely McGregor. And he goes for the submission choke. I wish I had the whole footage instead of the highlights and the notorious Movavi watermark. That was a treat to see.
Excelente joelhada. Consegue. E aí bateu. É fim de linha. É game on.
Caio Borralho.
You can see how much he studied Conor and how he implemented not just the moves, but how he times it and uses his distance just like Conor. I'm saying this because we've seen many Conor McGregor copycats and sometimes they don't turn out well. Here we have more of Caio's Conor style. It looks so good when he also fuses it with his jiu-jitsu and judo background.
Caio Borralho looking for that right movement. Good takedown by Caio Borralho. Looking for that perfect takedown. Caio Borralho very active, but Ícaro moving very well. Caio,
wow, nice swift by Ícaro Leão.
Already
Caio
put him down.
As we said before, Caio is a nerd. He doesn't want to take any risks. You don't want to exchange punches with a guy like Ícaro Leão who has knockout power.
Exactly.
So
God damn. Didn't have to say it like that, but I can't be one to talk as well. Caio's actually dominated the whole round there. He denied most of the transitions and got the full mount very easily.
As his articulation, because elbows, when they heat up, nice high kick by Ícaro Leão trying to put that pressure in the end of the round.
The first second of the second round and Caio hits him clean.
You can't let Caio close the distance. Good counter by Caio Borralho, immediately going for the leg.
Honestly, that should have knocked him out. I'm only saying that because we have other fighters in the video like Carlos Prates, John Silva, where they literally KO with a jab. I guess Caio's background of jiu-jitsu limits his striking right now. His muscle memory of movement is quite linear, the opposite of a strike, where it's most exponential in speed and like a explosive movement. But Caio still proves himself well in striking regardless of not having, Alex Pereira levels of power. Caio basically uses his grappling skills to dominate the Muay Thai fighter and wins via unanimous decision.
Decisão unânime, Caio Borralho.
And there we have Caio Borralho.
This fight was for the middleweight belt in this organization. And his opponent is coming in 7-0, super confident. I love what Caio is doing here. He probably knows the opponent is hungry and wants an exciting fight. He's 7-0 and it's the title fight. So, yeah, that's just what I think. And Caio is frustrating him as much as possible in the first round. just doing long-range movements, especially push moves to annoy him. Caio's jiu-jitsu background is also there if it ever goes to the ground as well.
Precisa conectar a distância muito longa, chega muito no finalzinho, não tem ângulo. O golpe pega golpe com potência.
Olha só o tapa de mão aberta ali do Caio Borralho no rosto do besouro, hein? Ativou o monstro no besouro.
And the bait is caught. The opponent had enough of the pressure and he needed to make a comeback somehow. And that's when Caio saw his takedown attempt. Of course, he reverses it and dominates on the ground. In the last 15 seconds of the fourth round, Caio wanted to dab up the opponent, but he did not accept it. Yep, he is frustrated as hell. And the fight ended with total domination.
Caio Borralho!
For his first Dana White Contender Series, it did not secure him the contract, sadly. You can see why. Although he won by unanimous decision in Caio Borralho fashion, Dana did not see him exciting enough, I think. Caio didn't really hunt for the finish. He's too smart for that. Even the commentators knew the same, where they were stating how much fight IQ he has. He was waiting at range with his usual Conor McGregor-inspired stance, and he attempted takedowns to get dominant positions. But not to finish the fight, but to put fear into the opponent. And it did work. But I guess the Dana White Contender Series isn't really there for fight IQ yet. Not to mention, this is the first time the world has seen the fighting nerds. So, in their perspective, it does seem a bit skeptical.
For the winner by unanimous decision, Caio Borralho.
But luckily, just 3 weeks later, he signed another fight. He understood it now and finished the fight in round 1 TKO. His fight IQ was so high, he can read the room and all he needs to do is just adjust to the social situation. It was just that easy for him. He already knew he was going to win. Caio used every good footwork to jump in and out of the pocket when he rocked Jesse. This is also the time where Caio has enough striking experience, he now shows more power. He's become an even more packaged MMA fighter. Caio, after nearly half a year, gets his official UFC debut. He fights Gutsy, I think that's how you pronounce it, who is an undefeated fighter at 12-0. This is also his UFC debut. Caio is very good and fast. I would be shitting my pants if I saw a giant 6'2" fighter jumping like Conor McGregor or Wonderboy. Gutsy, 1 minute into the first round, knew he could not dominate in striking, so he decides to wrestle. Excuse me. But little did he know, Caio is also super skilled down there as well. He reverses the position and then just dominates the whole first round. Got his back and everything, Jesus. And into the second round, it was even more domination. Caio nearly got the KO, but got too excited and pulled away from a grounded knee. And took the back for most of the round again. And, well, for the people that know about this fight already, here comes the bullshit for round 3. Yeah, one hand on the ground means the opponent is grounded. Well, not anymore as of the time of this recording. It is updated, so now he is still technically standing. But back in 2022, this ended the fight. It's so sad because this might potentially be a no contest, but luckily, the judges knew how dominant Borralho was and made it a technical decision. The very few times a technical decision has happened in the UFC, and I'm glad it happened. Oh yeah, I forgot, they did Borralho's height wrong. I am pretty sure he is 6'1", and the UFC, 99% of the time, likes to add an inch to a fighter, so he's really 6'2", which is his current stats. But during this time, he had the default average height of 5'10", which is completely wrong because just 1 second later, you can see the similar height of the two fighters.
Being a big star, you know, but to go with that dominance, I'd like to see, I want to see him try and finish, is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to be respectful because, you know, he's fighting a very, very tough opponent.
Yeah, Bisping was being brutally honest here. There were times where Borralho could have risked it to get a submission or TKO win, but he played it super safe where it looks like a Maraba moment. But to be fair, if there is a moment in time to be boring and super secure and winning, it might as well be your unranked scene. Because later on, he gets some very good fights and very exciting. And maybe having that secure style of fighting might have been good for him as muscle memory for the future. And here we have another secure win for Caio. I mean, even in the unranked scene, people still didn't really know the fighting nerds. I feel like the fight IQ alone does not really appeal to the UFC and its fans. I mean, we are looking at the CEO who almost tried to abandon the UFC and fully commit to Power Slap. So, you know. But yeah, it does get a bit boring because you know Caio will have more strikes on the feet for being so agile and dominate on the ground for being so smart. So yeah.
Caio, the Natural Ohio!
And here comes the change of pace. Not only did Caio win the fight with a satisfying finish now, he even got a performance bonus, just what we needed. Caio loves to dissect his opponent. He must have saw an obvious hole in the opponent's submission defense and he just had at it. I think you know what happens here without actually watching the fight. Winner by unanimous decision. And my theory of him dissecting his opponents is further validated by this amazing KO finish on the one and only Paul Craig. And this is Fighting Nerds certified as fuck. Exactly, smart move. Even when Caio has a somewhat good position going on and he's obviously skilled on the ground, he still backs up. And in round 2, Caio's got a sense of range now. He's no longer scared of Craig's roundhouse kicks anymore. He was a bit scared in round 1, but now he can take advantage and adapt quickly. Roundhouses are good in kickboxing distance, but if Caio can get into boxing distance and throw some hands, oh, it's over. And over it was. This is the most recent fight, so to keep my channel safe, we will only dive into the highlight here. Jared is... he's getting old, man. This was the last moments of the fight, and Caio got the upper hand for just being so much younger and better in the final rounds. The weird part is that this fight was a decision win, despite that crazy KO. I say KO because Jared was literally out there. And it sucks because Jared's most recent fight before that was a TKO. The most technical you can get with a technical KO. But it was him not fully out yet. And he was still fighting on the back foot and even complained. But this is the perfect time to discuss the future of Borralho now. He now enters the top 10 scene and now has a chance to face some crazy middleweight monsters. Pretty much with every fighting nerd I'm gonna be talking about, it really feels like none of them has reached their ceiling yet. Similar to Ilia Topuria a bit. We still need to see some of these fighters go to war. Like, war. No doubt they will in the future, but it leaves too much ambiguity to know what's going to happen. I feel like Caio should face Adesanya. I feel like that fight might be fun. Borralho could just wrestle and win by dominating Izzy just like that, but we are in the declining Izzy era. I think his second MMA fight against Pereira was his physical peak. His fighting camp for that was the maximum blood, sweat and tears he could ever produce. And it worked out for him. But now, after that, Sean Strickland, yeah, he slacked off. And DDP, yeah, I feel like he doesn't really care too much about not having the belt now. And if he faces the super fight IQ king Caio Borralho, he might lose. If this is peak motivation Izzy, he might win. But I don't think he wants to be in the top game anymore. Or the top game anymore. Which is fair enough. Like, what more does Izzy need to prove? He's been a top fighter for a long time. Like, no one will care if he's been a top fighter for a long time. But yeah, other than that, that leaves the excitement of the DDP versus Caio Borralho fight. I would love to see it. No fight IQ versus high fight IQ. Whose plot armor is better? Carlos Prates. I would say he is the next most popular fighter in the fighting nerds, having a very notorious 2024 where he has 4 KOs in the UFC, with all being performance of the night. Yeah, that's 200k USD and bonus money right there. Bro just made a wealthy living on accident. He's just that good. He could have made another 50k if the Dana White Contender Series gave out bonuses too. Many people also know Prates for his crazy smoking habit. Literal Sanji over here. Powerful kicks and smokes all the time. Despite his age at 31, he was fighting professionally at the age of 18. And he even had a strong Muay Thai and kickboxing background. So very similar to Alex Pereira, he has built the habit of frequent fights. He was fighting almost every week back in the day. So even though there might be footage of his Muay Thai and kickboxing, I can't dive too deep into it. I know this video needs to have a time limit, I'm sorry. But we will try to dive deep into every professional MMA fight he's been through though. This is Prates' first ever MMA fight at the age of 18. He is so lanky and tall for the weight class, which is probably a good thing. Especially now that he's older, a skinny build can be a good base sometimes for a fighter. Whatever size you put on is always going to be beneficial to your style, which would be striking here. His fighter name is called the Nightmare. I can see why. I'm already feeling the stress of the opponent where he needs to sprint into the pocket. The opponent goes for a takedown, which is a good idea. He manages the fight pretty well, but it was inevitable. In the second round, Prates goes for a flying teep, I think, and it connects while the opponent was exiting.
Golpeando com os joelhos e golpeando também com os socos. Outra vez chute ali pra cima dele na altura da cintura, vai acabar. Acabou!
The power and range is like a freaking Elden Ring boss. You know you start off with a giant disadvantage. This fight ended in round 3 where we can see Prates' inexperience showing. Well, obviously, he's 18. His fight IQ isn't there where he tanked some unnecessary shots and got controlled on the ground. But luckily, he was the tougher fighter and laid out his opponent and finished him with ground strikes. Carlos has a lot of fights. He had over 100 in kickboxing and Muay Thai and 27 in professional MMA. So I gotta cut some fights just to get the best summary out of them. I will cut his career into 3 sections. Let's dive into his first one, where I would call it the shaky era. Okay, that's why he has 6 losses in his career. We're going through that era. Carlos, by comparison to his current self, feels a bit less coordinated in MMA and just has less fight IQ. But sometimes his power and speed can save him here. This, however, was his first loss.
Ali sentiu o joelho, Carlos Prates, infelizmente, tão jovem, né? Você vê que até o Rafael Índio ficou preocupado. O que caiu ali, acabou se lesionando. Essa é a típica luta.
He gets some good wins in his first 3 years of MMA, but that was due to his striking background. Sadly, he did lose 3 more times, all due to submission. If you have that build, it's just really hard to get the strength for grappling. And the opponent has so much more to work with if you are lanky as well. Which is probably why some fans notice Carlos just lets his opponent up after a knockdown. He can clearly win by going for the ground and pound after, but maybe sometimes it triggers his past losses. I would like to call this next era of Prates his refining stage. He now competes in China and Singapore for a while, And sadly, Prates is the hardest fighter to find footage of this because it's in China and Singapore. And not to mention, he is a giant highlight reel of a fighter, so most fights are copyrighted as well. So going through this Wikipedia image, and my editing is really garbage, so I'm just going to plaster this right in front of your face like a freaking PowerPoint presentation. He won by guillotine choke, surprisingly, in his first China fight in the first round, but then later lost via TKO in the first round, which would have been very interesting to see how he lost that, but then later won via TKO next, and then TKO again next, and won by KO body kick in Singapore in his middleweight debut, which is very interesting because it's not a TKO body kick, but a KO body kick. But then lost via unanimous decision by this guy here, which I can only assume to be Russian, therefore had a Dagestani-like style and just hugged Prates for a long time, therefore losing the fight. But then later won by unanimous decision by a non-Russian fighter. Now this is what I like to call his win streak phase. This is when Prates just straight up locked in and decided to be a god. It's very similar to Charles Oliveira, where he was a decent fighter, but some would say journeyman. Only until he had a daughter and realized dad's strength is a very good base in MMA, thus leading to the legendary Charles Oliveira champion reign and win streak. This is similar to Prates. He went from 10-6, which is quite a bad record, to 21-6, which is a complete 180. But instead of him being a father and having dad strength like Charles Oliveira, he has chain smoker strength. Prates admitted he smokes about half a pack a day, which is still half a pack too much for an athlete. But maybe he knows he needs to nerf himself in this world. It's really hard to gauge how much smoking has affected him because all of his fights from now on either ends with round 1 or 2 KO, and it really looks like cardio isn't really a problem. And smoking cuts his appetite, so maybe that lanky, perfect build he has is only maintained because of his smoking habit. So maybe he really is the only exception where smoking is good for him. Don't quote me on that. This fight is a good summary of Prates as a fighter. It looks so chill for round 1. They test out some combos, see the reaction speed, distance management, yeah, whatever, you get the idea, and wham!
O Alan Silva. Entrou! E agora vai pra cima o Carlos Prates. Entrou a mão. E vem agora no ground and pound. Bate firme, bate forte, bate com vontade. Vem com tudo pra cima. O Carlos Prates conseguiu conectar o golpe no momento exato. Agora vai. De lado vai terminar. Terminou!
Yeah, no words. He timed it so well, where it was just that small window where he opens himself up for the punch. Yeah, a lot of the fights you are going to see will be this shocking. It actually feels like fighting in a dream. Well, I guess a nightmare in this case. I can get away with this shit because it's not heavily copyrighted right now. Once we get into the UFC Fight Pass and UFC Fights, I will use screenshots again, or crowd cam footage. I kind of feel bad for the opponent here. He finally had something going after 2 rounds where he can blitz in and just do a rush combo. He did it a few times and it seemed to be doing something, like at the very least, but Prates just jabbed him in the face and that was the fight.
Soltou o low kick, na sequência combinou a esquerda, olha só o Tafarel como ele vai com tudo pra cima.
O Tafarel não pode nem sonhar em se deixar encurralar aí na grade. E agora sim, também...
O chute alto pegou no timing exato, hein, Mel? Com a mão esquerda ali o Tafarel. Tenta o avanço, golpes em linha reta, duros os golpes em linha reta. Aí de novo tenta o avanço, o Tafarel sai do raio de ação, ali o cara dos Prates. Aí olha, mas o Tafarel avança sempre bem perigosamente.
Sentiu,
sentiu de novo. Entrou à direita, caiu com delay.
Entrou o jab de direita, caiu com delay. Agora vai terminar. Agora só a combinação emocionante. Aí você vê a frieza do Carlos Prates, é o que eu comentava. Agora com requinte de crueldade, mano.
Agora vem, solta a esquerda de novo, sentiu. Recolheu o corpo. Almendra tá ali de olho. Ajoelhada, vai terminar. Terminou!
Misericórdia.
It's really hard to analyze a guy if just anything he dishes out knocks out the opponent. No, your eyes aren't deceiving you. Yes, Prates fought Charles Oliveira. Not the one we know, but it's still funny.
proibido piscar. Oh, bom chute baixo começando ali o Prates. Outra vez o low kick, tentou ali ao mesmo instante. Oh! Entrou à direita, sentiu! Entrou à direita, sentiu! Vai terminar!
How is this fair? He's so powerful, a lot of people think his knockouts are fake. Now that's a life goal everyone needs to strive for. Be so good at a skill, people think you're cheating. The opponent literally gave up after the jab. Like, he didn't retaliate or anything. Like, he's still a trained fighter, and he gave up. He was out on his feet from a jab for 1 second, and when he regained a bit of consciousness, he tapped out. He said, "That's not it for me. I'm done."
Campeão da categoria peso médio do SFT, Carlos Prates.
And the winning KO streak still doesn't end here. He fights in the Dana White Contender Series, and even though the level of competition goes up, he's still fighting the same. I've analyzed his fights, and there is still no moments where he looked like he was in trouble. Yes, he does get hurt sometimes, but he still has that calm and confident state where he knows he can still KO you with a jab anytime. And another straight punch that ended the fight. One thing I noticed is that Prates maybe gets his power from loading the punch early, because he feints and loads a lot. His opponent gets used to his odd movements and gets adjusted. They know what to ignore now, and Prates talks most of his lower body ready for the punch, and all he needs to do now is just move his upper body quick and wham, it's over. Muay Thai is such a good base when you are tall as hell. Prates has no problems at all in this fight. At any distance, Prates was winning. At a distance where the opponent can't do anything, it's still enough for Prates to low kick, teep, and high kick. And when the opponent comes in, Prates got a sniper of a hand to kill you, which is what happened. One thing I do notice though is the very, very close distance. Because he has long as fuck limbs, he can't really articulate his very close range and be coordinated with it. He can knee and it's brutal, don't get me wrong, but sometimes it misses and you can tell he's just having a harder time when the opponent blitzes in so good into that close range. There was a small window where if an extremely good striker fights Prates and baits a knee from him, he can get him really good in the middle of that when he's just on one foot doing the knee. I don't know. That's just me though. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me scripting this video at 1 AM and I am 7,000 words deep and I'm losing my fucking mind. Carlos does it again. I really don't know what to commentate here. I love to analyze fights, but all I can show is the KO. The fight needs to be somewhat competitive for me to analyze it, but it's just not. It's just Prates rising through the rankings era. Hand fighting is a real thing as Prates holds the opponent's hand there. No, it's not scripted. No, it's not fake. Okay? They did the leech so dirty here. I don't know why they did this to him. The leech has never been knocked out before, so the matchmakers decided to see if Carlos can get it done. And even then, Carlos over-delivered. He dropped the leech 4 times in this fight. It was just under 2 rounds, and he managed to make him fall 4 times. The first time clipped him with a rear hand that wobbled him down. The second time was a point-blank rear hand that dropped him just before the round 1 finished. The third time was another rare hand, and the fourth and final time was, yes, another rare hand. That was insane. Oh yeah, Neil Magny, 1 rare hand, and did. So let's take a dive into Carlos as a fighter. I see this guy being top 3 and even the title shot. He's so good, but I can also see him getting submitted by Shavkat or something, or smothered by Bilal, or Usman. But I like to believe the pattern will still be the same as his win streak. He's just so good at stand-up where he can KO the opponent before they have their game plan set in stone. It's almost like Topuria, where we still don't know his full competitive potential. We have yet to see Topuria and Prates go to war with someone in the UFC. which makes the welterweight division so much more exciting because we have like, what, 6 or something ranked undefeated fighters in the UFC.
The broadcast, they were kind of talking about it. They were comparing you to Alex Pereira, but for me personally, when I saw you start to roll the hands and kind of move your shoulders, reminded me a little bit of Anderson Silva with the movements and the striking in there.
Man, that's amazing. You know, I'm a striker. I have more than 100 Muay Thai fights, and they compare me. When I won my contract on Contender Series, then I say they look like Anderson or like vintage Anderson Silva, and now they say, he looks like Pereira. Bro, it's an honor for me, you know. But another side, I keep it on my mind. Like it's really good to hear about that, but I want like 10 years from here. People say another guy, you looks like Carlos Prates, you know. That's what I want. But also it's really good here that like I look like Pereira or Anderson. It's an honor for me.
Yeah, he could not have said it better. He's humble, but also sets in stone his ambition too. You may not like his drinking, smoking, and partying lifestyle, but as a person, he and also everyone in the Fighting Nerds are still extremely likable. In terms of style, I feel like it's just a reaction. The more you watch Carlos fight, the more you notice it's really nothing like Anderson Silva and Alex Pereira. Pereira is tall too, but he loves his short hooks and is mostly like tall stance and back foot heavy. As in most of his fights is on the back foot or neutral. A good example of a fighter who's lead foot heavy and loves hooks too is Carlos Ulberg. You can see the difference between him and Alex Pereira. Carlos is a little more lead foot heavy and loves his straight punches more. I would say Prates' power is like Charles. If Alex touches you, you're dead. You are KO'd cold, 100% gone, unless you got a good chin. I feel like the straight punches and the reactions of the fighters getting hit with it is similar between Charles Oliveira and Carlos Prates. It's not a 100% cold KO, but a sting. Prates is obviously bigger and has a stronger Muay Thai background, so sometimes his straights do end up KOing people cold too. But yeah, in short, I think Prates' style in the UFC is very unique, so long and so Muay Thai. Jean Silva. Next we have Jean Silva, the featherweight of the Fighting Nerds. Don't let that shaved head and scruffy beard mislead you. He is only 27 years old and he is one powerful, stocky man. His build looks like he is short for featherweight, but he is still pretty much the same height as Ilia Topuria. And not to mention scary as hell. I think he's the murderer of the group. And yes, I'm saying that while we have Carlos Prates in the video. He always brings in the pressure and power shots too. Jean Silva finished all of his fights except for one. He won by decision in that one fight, but I will give that one a pass because that opponent was an 11-0 fighter at the time. So he basically killed his spirit, which is just as brutal. To just validate what I said about him, here is his debut fight.
Começo de combate. E fair play, tocaram luva, deu até abraço. Início de combate. Opa! O que aconteceu ali? O árbitro já interviu.
Yeah, he was only 22 years old there. He must have been testosterone maxing because he looks like prime Volk here. That was just a jab coming off a front kick, so technically speaking, it shouldn't have any power. But it shuts the opponent's lights off like that. Josh Emmett and this guy will be fireworks. I can already see it. Sadly, as an English speaker, there is a bunch of fights where I just couldn't find footage of, but we have the records here to get something at least. Silva won again by punches in round 2, but then lost via split decision. That fight was literally just 2 months apart, so I'm just gonna assume Jean was just burnt out a little bit. He then later got another finish in round 2, but lost against this time via unanimous decision. But don't get too sad, this is the most depressing part of this fighter's career. Yeah, and it's not even that bad. Now let's begin John Silva's amazing undefeated win streak now. Not to mention this upcoming win streak right now where all of his finishes were in round 1. Yeah, this guy is a problem. For this fight, we get to see Jean's ground game. And he is also good here. Even though the opponent sprawled, Jean is being offensive as hell anyway.
Mais uma joelhadinha.
And when the opponent tried to get up from the sprawl, Jean did a brilliant guillotine submission.
E tomou. Vai tomar a guilhotina ali. Vamos ver. E final de combate.
One thing you notice about Jean is that he is high pressure and high output. Even when he is finding his range, he still applies this scary pressure in the pocket. And not to mention head movement. I keep forgetting bro is just 23 here. They grapple for a bit and Jean is also dominating there. Once they get up, the opponent is just too tired to do anything. He's basically mentally checked out, which led to the finish. Damn. That sounded like a scream from a freaking horror movie. To be fair, a man just died before our eyes. One thing I noticed about Silva is that he is almost like Volkanovski. He's quick and speedy, and loves to low lead kick to measure his opponent. He is almost always the shorter fighter, so this is a great range fighter for other attacks. And to also hurt them too. Like, that shit builds up.
Claro que a distância é dele. E tem timing pra soltar os golpes, gente. Complica demais pra quem precisa encurtar.
Excelente mão direita do Jean, hein? Soltou um bom overhand, agora tentou entrar com direto.
Que jab potente.
Excelente overhand mais uma vez, Jean, hein? Olha essa esquerda que entrou! Vai terminar! É game over no road to future!
Yep, just like that. Jean is also very good at head movement, especially pulling. He just knows when a hook is coming and pulls back for his own punches. I've never seen a fighter go from an overhand to a lead overhand so smoothly that it could be considered something viable. I think this only works on someone like Jean Silva, that's it. Jean comes in to touch gloves with his opponent, but he goes for a leg kick instead. Yeah, biggest mistake of his life.
Superlutas e no nosso canal oficial do RFA. Pelo aqui também, mas não conectou, vai pro overhand agora o Thiago.
Jean, submit this fall in like 49.6 seconds or something.
Encaixou a guilhotina, bem encaixada.
Vamos ver se vai conseguir buscar a finalização, Jean. Vai pressionando. E aí bateu! É game over no RFA!
There we go. What even was this fight anyway? Jean fights an undefeated fighter but makes him look defeated. I don't know. I'm tired at this point. I hope you guys are still watching here. I don't want to be a freaking background noise on a second monitor. That's a fate worse than death for a YouTuber. But yeah, now that we're at this point of this explained series, I would love to introduce the sponsor of this video. No one. Yeah, hopefully that woke some of you up, because this fight might as well be demonetized. Jean gives some respect for the undefeated athletic 19-year-old in some moments, but that flying knee transition to a clinch definitely was a statement that there are levels to this.
Jackson, Gene Silva, nicely up the middle. Good mixture of submissions and knockouts on his record. Talking to his corner, ever the showman, Gene Silva. Oh, he's hurt him.
Jean then says something to the corner and finishes the fight.
Oh, the right hand's clean. We look to the referee. You got to carry on with the job at hand, my man. Gene Silva now trying to impose himself.
I don't know what's going on there, but I think he was telling the ref he's finished. Only after the opponent's body was like a literal ragdoll, the fight was stopped.
What a finish. Wow. Out cold. Jackson Gene Silva.
His final fight before the UFC was against Shaheen Nayafi, which I couldn't find footage of, which may have been a good thing because he was a 9-9 fighter and got finished in the first 2 minutes of the fight. Jean gets matched up against the 14-0 Kevin in the Dana White Contender Series. Jean in the first 10 seconds, very light on his feet, goes for a switch high kick. Already established the fear in him. Jean likes to keep his hands down and go in southpaw in the pocket to bait something out, which works sometimes, and then he gets hit too. So he switched back to orthodox. I would say Silva has more output, which is weird for an underdog to do, as well as taunting him at the end of the round, I guess? Jean Silva gets a little too experimental in the second, where Kevin catches him clean in some exchanges. Maybe don't flying knee the undefeated prospect just yet. But here comes the problem with Kevin. He is too patient. Rightfully so, because Jean is doing some weird shit sometimes, but then bounces back to being a boxing god straight after. So such a style shift makes Kevin even more intimidated because he has more things to download now, which will be too late as he almost got KO'd at the end here.
The fence lands another big right.
He's taking over.
Big knee.
And that was basically the fight. Jean had priority the whole time with his pressure and output. Of course, Kevin was still there and he punches back, but we all knew he was waiting for a miracle. After each combo he did, he would just high guard back because he knows he can't beat Jean through trading. Jean wins via TKO round 1 in his UFC debut. Enough said, that power is too different. The height of the opponent was his downfall. You can't really compete against a hungrier, shorter, higher fight IQ and higher power fighter. Jean actually came in as the minor underdog against Charles Jourdain. Jean starts off with a crazy low kick. The level of striking is high, where Jourdain wasn't even phased. He just let the foot flow into a different stance and he was preparing to counter. Had full eye contact and everything, just to show that there are levels to this between you and me. And after using head movement to dodge 2 head kicks, Jean goes for a dab up. I forgot, with all the destruction and round 1 kills he's had, he's just a cool fighting nerd. And he does it again.
24th pro MMA fight for Jourdain. He has never been knocked out.
Fuck. And there goes the John Anik curse. Jourdain tried blitzing in. I think he wanted to do a 2 in orthodox and then switch to a southpaw 2 when he closes in so much distance. But John clipped in good when he tried to transition there. Coming into the second round, the tides have switched completely. It's like night and day if we were to compare the start of round 1 to the start of round 2. And here comes the KO.
I mean, the power this kid has. Oh! That'll do it! Sean Lord Silva with the walk-off KO!
That is insane. We all knew he had power, but to do this to a guy with a crazy chin? Drew Dober coming at the age of 35. So you know where this is going. But Drew came in very good at the start with a perfect body kick. Good range and everything. Jean was definitely shocked by the power of the lightweight. Yeah, Jean wanted to come back quick, so he chose to fight in lightweight. Because he's a psychopath. Jean also never really initiates on the ground. What you've noticed so far is that he loves to throw and makes the opponent get up if he's knocked them down. So Jean made a statement where he literally just tossed Drew to the side there. He's got strength too, not just power. Jean has the upper edge in the exchanges and won the first round, also leaving Dober with a bloody face. I'm not gonna lie, I've been enjoying the second round so much, I forgot I'm making a freaking video about it. This fight is the perfect example of strength versus power. Drew Dober, he looks so much slower, but if he got one good lick in, it makes Jean flinch a bit. But Jean most of the time has so much speed and power, he cuts him with a hook so easily. Jean is also so good fighting on the back foot. He clips so many people when they come in. But Drew this time went for a Superman punch that got Jean's respect. I'm not gonna lie, this fight is so underrated. Jean literally moved up a weight class and no one seemed to appreciate it. Also, we gotta appreciate that spinning elbow. When you're in southpaw, or just an open stance, when you step in for the jab, your foot would want to step outside the opponent's lead leg. Jean baited this by stepping in more with his lead leg, making the jab look more appealing. So for a bloody dober, this could be easy money for a boxing combination. Little did he know, Jean made him step into the perfect position and peak distance for a spinning elbow. Yes, I know, nerdy as fuck analysis, but look at the YouTube title. Yeah, exactly, shut up. And coming into the third, the spinning elbows don't stop and the doctor's stoppage happened. Yeah, I might have to censor that. This fight showed so much character for Jean Silva. You can't hate this guy. He's always showed charisma and a fun attitude in his fights. He respects them too. This fight specifically reminded him of his late brother. I mean, how can you hate this guy? So Jean Silva has a lot of potential. To be fair, he is still fairly new, where he hasn't fought a ranked opponent yet. And also, I'm not too sure if he's staying in lightweight or he's going to stay in featherweight. We still need to see how well Jean does against a full-on grappler, like maybe fight Aljo next if he loses against Movsar Evloev, or fight Movsar if Movsar loses. But in all honesty, I hope for a striking battle war against him and Josh Emmett. That would just be a treat to everyone. Also, it is still too early to see how well he does against the top 3. I have no clue how well he will do against Volk, Max, or Ilya. Maybe you guys can comment it down. Okay, I'm trying to be a YouTuber for once. Comment down what you think who's gonna win. But yeah, he is young, thirsty, and on a killer win streak. That definitely plays a part of the next opponent's mindset coming into the future fights. Intimidation is a real thing, and Jean Silva has all of it right now. Also, yeah, I am fully assuming he's going to stay in featherweight. I think it would be cool if there was a fighting nerd in each UFC division. The only ones missing is flyweight, bantamweight, light heavyweight, and heavyweight. Well, I'm talking about the male divisions, of course. So, which makes it a good segue moving into our female fighting nerd, Bruna Brasil. Next, we have the strawweight Bruna Brasil. She is currently 31 years old and having a record of 10-4. She is 2-2 in the UFC. She is also the only female fighter in the fighting nerds that fights under the UFC. Yes, there are heaps of fighters in the fighting nerds gym, but I think she's the only female there that is actually in the UFC, as of the recording of this video. She is also the only one without an undefeated record in the UFC too, that is under this gym. But to be fair, the female MMA divisions are always a gamble. You just never know. Like, who actually predicted Grasso to submit Shevchenko in their first fight? So matchmakers maybe didn't know what to do with her and overvalued her rise to the top ranks, or maybe she's just bad. Who knows? We will get to the answer very shortly. So before her professional MMA debut, she was actually a pretty good kickboxer. In her official YouTube channel, it shows fight footage from around 11 years ago, meaning she has a great background in striking, from at least the age of 20 as well. Also on her YouTube channel is some vlogs and fight predictions. She doesn't post often, but it's good to see some social media from fighters while you can. You get to see the love between the team and get a real insight of their fight camps. Sadly, we do gotta talk about her first MMA pro fight now. And why do I say sadly? It's because despite her kickboxing background, she got TKO'd in her first fight, making it an 0-1 record already. And then a draw. And look at that, a decision win, that's good. Also, these fights are under this organization, which is why I couldn't find any fight footage. So we actually jump into a 25-year-old Bruna who now fights Jessica Dalboni. She opens up in southpaw. I think she is traditionally conventional, so I guess she wants to start off confusing her opponent already, which works. The opponent blitzed too hard and Bruna kinda has a good guillotine in. It goes to round 2 now, and this is where it goes wrong. Yeah, halfway into the fight, she sustained a very bad knee injury. That counts as another TKO loss for her.
Senhoras e senhores.
After watching the TKO many times, I'm still not sure what happened. Her screams don't lie though. That must have hurt really bad. I guess she planted her foot on the edge of the cage thinking it was the canvas, which made it stand in a bad way that broke it? Maybe? But unfortunately, she did not fight again for another 2 years. So from the age of 25 to 27, she was just healing. So now we jump into her next fight. What I didn't say earlier was that Brazil was basically winning the last fight. She was better at striking and it was pretty neutral in terms of ground game. One of her best weapons is her kicks. Of course, that means the opponent needs to resort to clinching and pushing her to the cage. But after many diverse strikes, it got the opponent too comfortable on what's going on, which led to the finish. That was brutal, and what a career comeback too. This is her next fight. It's so hard for me to analyze and break down this section of her career, because she is just faster and leagues above everyone else in striking. So what do I even talk about? You know, I'm going for a break, like literally going for a break. Here's a freaking compilation video. Yeah, enjoy.
Tá arrochando de pé, bateu, termina a luta!
A Bruna Brasil. Cheio de confiança aí a Bruna Brasil. Na perna, mais um golpe duro. Mas normal.
A Yasmin tá esperando aquela brecha.
Obviamente de um pitaco do seu colo. Lindo rodado agora da Bruna Brasil.
Aproximação, ritmo, não conseguiu. Bruna Brasil controlou a distância, não teve contundência em nenhum golpe.
Mais um rodado ali, agora não.
Mas a Bruna tá dando algumas brechas. Agora parece que ficou mais ligada novamente, deu uma acelerada a mais, ó, tá mais ligada.
Tá na frente a Bruna Brasil, olha lá, e já volta.
A maior parte do tempo, que é na luta em pé, na trocação, venceu tranquilo, de uma maneira pior. Mas tem
distância agora, vai se sentindo mais segura para se aproximar.
Do Superman.
Tem alguma coisa contra a Mulher Maravilha?
Finalização para ganhar a luta. Foi afobada numa chave reta de pé, mal encaixada e perdeu a posição.
E manda aí a sua superstição pra gente, se você tem alguma, né? Que a Bruna Brasil tá trazendo aqui, ó, alho, crucifixo.
Brasil! Tal agora da Bruna.
E a Bruna aproveitando, né, a altura dela para manter a distância, né, até para não vir esses... Ixi,
entrou uma esquerda boa pra Bruna. Foi pra cima e vitória!
So the Dana White Contender Series, right off the bat in the first minute, Bruna nearly gets the TKO.
Similar to our first matchup. Oh, wow, a body kick from Brazil, and now she's trying to tee off.
She went for a very good teep that hurt the opponent. And throughout the first round, except for the clinching, she was applying pressure the whole time. So you know she was confident for what's about to come.
Because, like you said earlier, Paul, man is so concerned about that front kick right now. That's all she's thinking about.
Called it! Bruna Brasil head kick knockout!
The opponent must have been way too exhausted to use any form of fight IQ left in her body. She was just tanking so many open shots in southpaw like that. This is her UFC debut, and she fights another Brazilian fighter who is 23 years old. I feel like I need to say that because the opponent dominated Brazil. I think Bruna Brasil wasn't ready for this level of power and speed from such a young opponent. That's why she got rocked many times and just didn't have an answer for most striking exchanges. Bruna is more technical and you could say patient, but the output wasn't there, and the opportunity to counter might never come.
A couple weird things when she... Oh, there it is, sets her down, and now it's over. That's punching down to Nisi Combs.
Yeah, Bruna stood her ground in some exchanges, but it just wasn't enough. She can have all the fight IQ from the fighting nerds, but when it comes to raw power and relying on your chin, it becomes another game now. Brazil fights the undefeated Bannon, but also the same age as Brazil, so there's a chance. And also similar height. I feel like Brazil gets her striking range and confidence better if the opponent is the same height and won't just power blitz her. This fight ended in a decision win for Brazil. She learned from her past mistake and got her output fixed. Not to mention Bannon doesn't really have that much striking experience as well. I think that's why they put Brazil as the favorite here, despite Bannon being the undefeated fighter. And here comes her worst matchup yet. A moderate underdog for a reason. She is fighting Loma. She is from Thailand, so the striking will be top tier. She is short and younger than Bruna. This is going to be tough. And tough it was. Bruna just couldn't find an answer to anything. She is focused and probably more technical, but maybe this is where her weakness shows. She doesn't seem to take risks that bad. And I don't blame her. She's had crazy injuries in her losses in her career. Like, remember the 2-year knee injury setback? That's probably why. But the fight got boring. She is just playing a chess match rather than a fight. She is too patient, waiting for something to click and then goes for it. But sometimes it just doesn't happen. Therefore, she lost via unanimous decision. And this is her most recent fight against Molly McCann. Or McCain. I forgot. I think you guys know this fight already. And if you haven't, you can kind of guess how it goes. Molly is older, she is not really a striker, and she is similar height to Bruna. So, therefore, this is easy money for Bruna Brasil then. She won via unanimous decision, where she could have got the finish a couple of times if she were to risk it, but she played it safe and got the win anyway. Take that as a bad or good thing. Sometimes her fight IQ, alongside most of the fighting nerds, is so smart, they don't see the appeal of risking things. So here we have the outro, and I'm just sitting there thinking, I have no idea where she is headed to in the division. Maybe because half of the reason is because I'm super ignorant in the female MMA world, but she is definitely good and you should watch her regardless of where she is ranked. She is almost like the Dustin Poirier of female MMA. She never had back-to-back losses and she always bounces back after a loss. So it's going to be fun watching her. Mauricio Ruffy. Next we have Mauricio Ruffy, if that's how you pronounce it, the last headlining fighter representing the fighting nerds. He has the smallest record out of everyone at the gym, well, the headliners, but don't let that mislead you thinking he is not experienced. He is still worthy of the philosophy of high fight IQ styled fighting. He has a total record of 11-1 and 3-0 in the UFC if we were to include the Dana White Contender Series. Not to mention accomplishing this already at the age of 28. Yes, he looks old because of the facial hair, but he is extremely young for where he's at in the division. Maybe one more fight unranked, and then 2 or 3 more ranked fights. That's looking like a title shot at maybe at the age of 30 or 31, if things go well. Perfect timing to enter his prime. There's really not much about this guy on the internet as a person. I came across some websites, but it really just sounds like a bunch of AI garbage. Like reading this, it just screams AI. Where did Mauricio Ruffy grow up? Mauricio Ruffy grew up in Sao Paulo, Brazil, a city known for its vibrant culture and passion for sports. Wow. From a young age, he was exposed to various martial arts disciplines which sparked his interest in combat sports. Wow. His environment helped cultivate his competitive spirit and drive. Okay. Ruffy's upbringing in a bustling city influenced his determination to succeed in MMA. The diverse training options available in Sao Paulo allowed him to explore different fighting styles, laying a strong foundation for his career. What the fuck are you meant to take from that? That was just a waste. I am sorry, I apologize for that, but that just goes to show how much nobody knows about Mauricio Ruffy. Hopefully we will in the future. Not to mention that there is even 10 more paragraphs just like that. So maybe it's good this man is still somewhat a mystery. He looks scary, powerful, and mysterious. But you know he's from the Fighting Nerds gym, so you can see how much more likable he is because of that. So despite his outside appearance, you know he's just not a dick. This is Ruffy's first ever professional MMA debut, where he started at the age of 20. Well, holy moly, that just happened. One of the greatest MMA debuts in history, perhaps? First ever strike landed was an overhand that got the knockdown, and ultimately finished the fight in 30 seconds. Seeing from Ruffy's movements, stance, and form, you can tell it isn't just some powerful amateur who got lucky. You can gain this sixth sense, knowing that he is already a great fighter, despite the lack of, footage and high output right here. You know what else is better than a round 1 TKO in his early career? Another round 1 TKO. But before we see the knockout, we gotta appreciate the pose in the intro. He's a freaking fighting nerd, so I can't rule it out, but he must know his name is very similar to the main character of One Piece. The main character's name is Monkey D. Luffy, and said in Japanese is Ruffy. Just like our boy here, and he is hitting the gear second pose. It might be a long shot, but yeah, real recognizes real. Well, in this case, nerds recognize nerds. Unreal. Another first strike that landed the knockdown. Not to mention the perfect form of a high roundhouse kick there. To be fair, I don't know much about that other fighter. He's a southpaw. It's almost like the golden rule to watch out for the open side strikes. And only after 3 knockdowns, the ref finally recognizes the power and ends the fight. Not gonna lie, I feel like I really am watching the real Luffy.
Mauricio Ruffy!
The next fight, Ruffy beats Lucas Costa in round 1 via TKO. Rafael Silva stood no chance at all. This was all the footage I could find, and my god, the difference in skill is more obvious here. Instead of a quick finish, we saw dominance and style. Going from back-to-back ragdolling, to spinning heel kicks, to spinning elbows. One thing I can see is his resemblance to Conor McGregor, which many other UFC fans have noticed as well. He is quick, powerful, and twitchy, which gives him an ultimate striking edge over his opponent. But I can see very subtle movements where he looks, tired. Maybe alluding to bad cardio, just like Conor McGregor, or just any fighter with that style in fighting in general too. But then again, I don't have the full footage. He may have been rocked, who knows? He may have been scrambling for 2 minutes straight, who knows? That's why he's tired. Damn. The resemblance is just getting way too uncanny now, but his confidence can be backed up. Sadly, the fight got a bit boring where he was pushed up against the cage. The ref pulls them apart due to no action, literally no action. Yeah, after a bit, no one tried to strike or trip or transition or anything. Ruffy does some good boxing and goes for a forwarding spinning heel kick. That is some crazy confidence. He already knew there wasn't that much risk doing it. A very, very skilled striker knows that small window there is a free KO button. But because the opponent has done no counters at all, I feel like Ruffy just has mad confidence he can just do it. And he made it look easy.
Outra vez essa direita. Esse giro dele é algo muito potente. Agora caiu, consegue a queda. Essa que é a luta em pé. Veloz o Mauricio Ruffy.
É, muito veloz, muito preciso.
Caiu novamente.
Fim de papo.
E que fim de luta!
Mauricio
I'm not going to spoil this fight, but look at the difference in Ruffy now. We saw a higher guard, almost boxing-styled Ruffy at the beginning. Now he has a wide stance and his hands are out, looking more to range and counter than to block.
Oh my god. There you go. My face is strong. Going to their strikes. Openly. Going to the ground.
The opponent nearly got Peter Yarned, but got back up. I need to mention these are both undefeated fighters right now.
Connect the punches. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Oh, that connected.
There you go,
He's in trouble. He's in
really,
trouble.
really good.
Alright, do I even need to analyze that play there? No words could have described that shit. That was crazy. But this is where it goes differently. The opponent is undefeated, meaning he's not shit. Kind of like Ruffy's past opponents, where they are all like 4-3 and 1-4. He managed to recover by clinching and actually manages to knock down Ruffy as payback.
Ruffy, red gloves. There you go. He connected a really great punch to the face.
Whoa!
There you go.
And they managed to go to round 2. Weird, I know. And here comes the problem. With half the fight being clinching, aka a different form of cardio and strength than striking, it tired out Ruffy pretty bad, which led to the TKO loss.
Whoa.
Wow, what a move!
He got the leg in the right time. Mito going, circling him round and round. Trying to put some pressure, throwing him. Whoa! He did throw a punch, and that's it! That's it!
Wow! Wow! I told you this guy is crazy!
Maybe that style needs a bit more refining, but the good thing is that this is Ruffy's only loss to date. Seeing how early it is in his career as well, is actually good, meaning it's a fundamental learning experience for him. And fun fact, his opponent is actually really good, having his first ever loss in MMA just a few months ago in Bellator. So the big jump in skill must have surprised Ruffy. Ruffy comes back doubling down on his wide karate-like style here, which that spinning heel kick would have chopped that guy's head off if he wasn't lucky. But yeah, that relentless pressure and striking capability definitely intimidated him. He had a 360 cancel to a hook, which generated enough power to get the KO. What the hell did I just say? Exactly. Ruffy now enters the CFC, which probably has the coolest MMA uniform ever, but sadly the best I can find is the highlights on YouTube. Ruffy gets the best out of the exchanges where he won by TKO, but he also got dropped too. It was the same way where he couldn't find the range quickly from the opponent's blitz and didn't have enough time to get a good straight punch down. This one was a masterclass by Ruffy. He got the TKO win once again and did it in incredible fashion. Finished with hammer fists on the ground, another crazy parallel to Conor beating Dustin Poirier. Another thing to talk about is his pure conventional textbook defense. Sometimes I hold back on these talks, but I'm literally making a video about fighting nerds. I can yap all I freaking want. Ruffy is so freaking good at everything, But the hole I can see is his pure defense. Like being conservative for a portion of the fight and recollecting your thoughts and like just straight up recovering. Maybe it's because I'm looking at a compilation rather than the full fight, but I see it in every fight so far. His footwork is amazing to dodge shots, his head movement is good, his rolling of the punches is good too, but when things get really thick, I feel like Ruffy is lacking a bit there. Only by contrast though. Only by contrast, because everything else is just so good. I don't have the full picture. Because all the times he's been dropped, it's looked like a miscalculation in the read by Ruffy. Like he slipped into the punch, or he didn't think the punch will reach him, but it did, and it paid a big consequence. But anyway, let's move on to the UFC contract. Coming in as an underdog, Ruffy wants to make a big statement for the welterweight division. But spoilers, he actually becomes a lightweight fighter after this. But his opponent is good. He is Islam Makhachev's training partner and ex-ONE UFC fighter as well. So you can see why he's the favorite. The first round was nothing. Like, literally nothing. Just goes to show how careful these guys are. They won't have any second chances with this level of competition now. And also seeing Borralho and Pablo in his corner just feels so wholesome for some reason. This team has all come together now. Magomed has a good game plan chopping the leg, and probably when the time is right, fakes it and goes for a blitz. Ruffy's weakness. But surprisingly, Ruffy's defense did get better. His ring control and distance management saved him from sticky situations. And second round was quiet too. I mean, compared to all of his previous fights, of course. We might be seeing a smarter Ruffy here. Or we have the chance to see a smarter Ruffy here. He's letting the pace come to him now. And it paid off big time. Because in round 3, Ruffy got his momentum going and dominated Magomed in the third round. Even finishing him on the ground via TKO just like that. He's never been TKO'd before, so that is a big statement. Russian prospect getting TKO'd on the ground. Ruffy hype train begins. Ruffy debuts officially and fights against Malaki. And in the first second, he goes for the most Brazilian nerd thing you can do. The capoeira slide low kick that Sub-Zero does in Mortal Kombat. But there is still a bit of a hole in his game. He got clipped a bit coming back from a blitz. But that's fine because that was the one mistake backing up out of the 20 successful ones. And here comes the beginning of the end where Ruffy rocks Malaki from a spinning heel kick. It didn't knock him out, but you know that's enough for the fear to set in. And when it couldn't get any more scarier, Ruffy goes for the scissor sweep. And right after that comes the finishing TKO moment. Also, fun fact for some non-veteran fans, Malaki was actually having a great undefeated career in his early professional days. And you will never, ever guess, for the casuals, you will never guess who knocked him out cold in round 1.
Hook. He does. Oh! Over! Volkanovski is knocked out! Jamie Malaki!
So this is his most recent fight and he put on another style showcase. A no-look shovel hook and just flush rear hand punches. If it was any other opponent, it would have been another KO finish. But yeah, that's the most information I can give out of this fight because of its recency. So here comes the career projection and outro for Ruffy. He is definitely an extremely exciting fighter. He is massive for the weight class being 5'11" and maybe pushing 6'2". I'm looking at like a Justin Gaethje build with Conor McGregor striking, but also having some security in the ground game. If Ruffy continues to improve his weaknesses, then I see him becoming top 5 in no time. His weakness of miscalculating range could be his downfall. He's so creative and he's probably thinking about 5 different ways to knock out the opponent, but once the opponent comes in blitzing really good, that might stall Ruffy's way of thinking and his way of thinking might not be as efficient and will clip him. And the current top fighters in lightweight have power. Don't mess with them. I think a Ruffy versus Fiziev needs to happen sooner or later. No matter who wins that fight, the stocks and value of the new generation of lightweights will go up. And that is basically the video. Make sure to subscribe if you made it to the end. It's the least you can do. I am freaking dead right now. I don't think I've looked at half-naked men on a screen this long before. And you too. So please show your appreciation. And if this if this video gets good engagement, then you are also showing your support for the fighting nerds. We need this MMA gym to be on the radar. I've never seen such a greatly marketable gym with actual values.